When we ask what we truly know about NHI species non-human intelligences, we are left with only fragments, scattered and often incomplete. The picture that emerges is vague, shaped more by indirect testimony and scattered documentation than by concrete scientific data. Yet despite this lack of clarity, some projects have attempted to systematize and analyze the available information. One such initiative is the Ezekiel Project, a long-standing and deeply investigative effort that has traced data on NHI entities back to the 1940s. It has attempted to extract patterns and define what these beings might be, how they may appear, and what characteristics they exhibit. Still, categorizing and classifying such species remains an incredibly difficult task. The available evidence does not lend itself to a traditional taxonomy. Instead, it forces us to consider alternative frameworks, ones that account for genetic engineering, cloning, and interdimensionality. There is increasing support for the theory that many of the entities encountered over the decades are not species in the biological sense, but rather genetic constructs, clones created by a more advanced form of life. These beings are not born but manufactured, designed for specific purposes, possibly even for interactions with humanity. The implications of this are enormous. It suggests that we are not dealing with civilizations as we understand them, but with entities that are tools, servants, or emissaries of unseen creators. Moreover, there are reports and theories that suggest some NHI entities are interdimensional in nature. These beings may not originate from planets or galaxies as we imagine them, but from alternate realms of existence entirely. They may possess the ability to dematerialize and rematerialize at will, crossing the barriers between dimensions as easily as we might step through a doorway. Their manifestations in our reality could be temporary, and their form possibly more symbolic or functional than biological. But let us begin with what is widely recognized as the most archetypal of alien beings: the small humanoid figures, ranging from 110 to 150 centimeters in height, with enlarged craniums, slender limbs, and large, deep black eyes. This description is echoed in countless testimonies from witnesses spanning more than 8 decades. These beings typically display 3 fingers and a thumb on each hand, although some accounts mention 4 or even 5 fingers. The 3-fingered variety appears to be the most consistent and functionally plausible. One controversial account comes from Richard Doty, who claimed that he encountered beings with 4 fingers and no opposable thumb. However, this configuration seems biologically disadvantageous and contradicts both evolutionary logic and the preponderance of reports. Therefore, many researchers regard Doty's account as potentially misleading or misinformed. What appears to be well supported, based on statements dating back to the 1950s, is that direct physical contact with this species can cause severe inflammatory responses in the human body. Witnesses and victims have reported immune reactions so intense that they suggest exposure to a toxic agent. This toxin seems to be secreted through the pores of the being's skin and can enter the human body via skin contact or mucous membranes. The effect on the human organism is acute and dangerous. In parallel, numerous reports, some dating to the 1940s, consistently describe a strong odor associated with these beings. This scent has been characterized as a blend of ammonia and sulfur. The connection between this odor and the skin secretions of the species is probable. Interestingly, historical folklore also contains accounts of gods or divine beings whose presence caused death or unconsciousness upon contact. Within church traditions, demons have long been described as carrying the stench of sulfur. These similarities are unlikely to be mere coincidence. Instead, they may be echoes of real encounters with these non-human intelligences, preserved in cultural memory under the veil of myth and religion. Another recurring feature in both testimony and mythology is the lack of visible joints, particularly in the knees. Starting in the 1950s, there have been increasing numbers of reports describing these beings as wearing footwear that allows them to hover or glide just above the ground. During such movements, no flexion of the knees or other joints is observed, leading to the theory that their locomotion is not entirely biomechanical in nature. The small, gray-skinned beings popularly associated with the 1947 Roswell incident are now believed to be genetically engineered organisms. they appear to be clones and not independently viable biological entities. Autopsy reports describe them as possessing a remarkably tough outer skin and internal structures composed of cord-like tendons and vessels. When injured, these beings do not bleed in the conventional sense. Instead, wounds emit a clear, watery fluid, another indication that these are not naturally evolved life forms, but engineered biological units. Significantly, variations exist among these clones, suggesting that they may have been tailored for different purposes or created by different NHI civilizations. Their sizes range from 110 to 150 centimeters in height, and their skin tones span from light gray to dark brown. Despite this diversity, all known specimens share critical features: a lack of secondary sexual characteristics, including nipples and mammary glands, and an absence of reproductive organs. This supports the conclusion that they do not reproduce biologically and reinforces the theory that they are artificial constructs. For the Ezekiel Project, one conclusion is irrefutable. Multiple governments across the globe are in possession of both living and deceased examples of these beings. These specimens are not merely classified curiosities. They are actively being studied, dissected, and analyzed in facilities hidden from public view. The long-standing silence and secrecy surrounding these efforts point to a deep and perhaps troubling truth, one that humanity may not yet be prepared to fully confront. The journey to understanding who or what these NHI beings are is far from complete. We are piecing together a puzzle with most of its parts missing, using testimonies, ancient myths, and declassified fragments. But even within this uncertainty, certain patterns have begun to emerge. Patterns that suggest intelligence, intentionality, and a long-standing presence in human history. Whatever the truth may ultimately be, it is clear that we are not alone, and perhaps never have been. Among the many enigmatic species cataloged by researchers and independent investigations into non-human intelligences, there exists one particularly elusive group about which little is known. This species surfaced in various reports primarily during the 1950s and 1960s, before fading into obscurity under circumstances that remain unclear to this day. The beings in question are small in stature, estimated to stand between 110 and 130 centimeters in height, and possess a form that is generally humanoid, though distinct in ways that defy conventional explanation. What sets them apart physically is their disproportionate cranial structure. Their heads are significantly larger than those of human beings, with a facial region that occupies only 20 to 30% of the skull. The remainder of the head is dominated by a broad, flattened upper section that extends laterally to accommodate two pronounced side pockets, believed to be composed of dense or specialized tissue. These formations are unlike any natural structures found in known terrestrial biology. The function of these tissue accumulations remains speculative, perhaps related to sensory processing, telepathic communication, or neurological enhancement. One of the most notable features of these beings is their eyes. Contrary to the archetypal alien descriptions involving oversized black oculars, this species is reported to have relatively normal-sized eyes that are deeply set into the face. The gaze, when observed, was described as neither mechanical nor empty, but rather restrained, observant, and oddly passive, evoking a sense of quiet intellect or dissociation from emotional expression as understood in human terms. The origins of this species remain shrouded in mystery. Early attempts to rationalize their appearance leaned toward terrestrial explanations. Medical experts, in their efforts to apply known diagnoses to the unknown, suggested a potential link to progeria, a rare genetic disorder in humans characterized by rapid aging. Superficially, the elongated skull, frail physique, and facial characteristics might align with this hypothesis. However, those who encountered these beings in the field, particularly military and intelligence personnel, soon recognized that these similarities were only skin deep. These beings did not behave or respond like humans afflicted with any known condition. They were often discovered in proximity to unidentified flying objects, particularly in the aftermath of crash sites. Both in the United States and across Europe, during the height of Cold War-era secrecy and experimental aviation, reports began to trickle through various classified and fringe channels regarding the recovery of small but humanoid bodies whose physiological makeup did not match any known species. What is most perplexing is their abrupt disappearance from the record. By the late 1960s, sightings and documentation of this particular species had sharply declined. There are no publicly known photographs, no confirmed biological samples, and no conclusive autopsy reports that have withstood scrutiny. It is as if the presence of these beings on Earth was brief, possibly accidental, or part of a controlled engagement that was never meant to continue. Whether they were scouts, bioengineered organisms, or remnants of a larger collective that has since withdrawn remains entirely speculative. One possibility discussed among internal circles of the Ezekiel Project and similar investigative bodies is that these beings may not have originated from the same sources as the more commonly encountered species. Their physiology and reported behavior suggest a different evolutionary path, or possibly a highly specific function within a larger interstellar or interdimensional system. It is conceivable they were biological instruments designed for observation or reconnaissance, deployed during an exploratory phase of contact that was quickly aborted or reconsidered. The absence of ongoing reports raises questions about their fate. Were they recalled? Did they perish as a result of exposure to Earth's environment? Or did their presence serve a purpose that has now been fulfilled? The silence surrounding them is almost as telling as their appearance was unsettling. In the years since their last confirmed association with UFO-related incidents, they have become a spectral footnote in the broader study of non-human entities, a puzzle with missing pieces, a mystery shelved for lack of evidence. Yet, even in absence, their image lingers, etched into memory by those few who encountered them and preserved in scattered documents now hidden away or forgotten. In the context of the wider investigation into intelligent life beyond Earth, this species represents the fragility of knowledge, how easily truth can be buried by time, bureaucracy, or fear. It stands as a reminder that not all mysteries come with closure, and not all visitors stay long enough to be understood. As researchers continue to revisit declassified materials and eyewitness accounts from the mid-20th century, there remains hope that new revelations may emerge, perhaps through private archives, forgotten recordings, or advancements in digital analysis that might extract detail where none seem to exist. Until then, this small and silent species remains a ghost in the chronicles of alien contact, briefly seen, barely understood, and quietly erased. When we turn our attention to the next non-human intelligent species, we encounter a particularly fascinating and enigmatic group, one that resembles humans to an extraordinary degree and has appeared repeatedly throughout historical texts, religious traditions, and ancient artwork. This species, often referred to in contemporary discussions as the Great Whites or Pleiadians, is steeped in both mystery and misunderstanding. Folklore and perception frequently conflate these designations, creating a distorted picture riddled with assumptions and romanticized projections. To speak of the Great Whites is to summon imagery of tall, humanoid beings with long white or golden hair, fair skin, and deep, often luminous eyes. These figures are repeatedly linked to myths of gods and celestial visitors across countless civilizations. Yet beyond the myth lies a body of information gathered and studied extensively by the Ezekiel Project that paints a far more complex and sobering picture of who these beings are, and perhaps even what our relationship to them might be. The prevailing hypothesis within the Ezekiel Project suggests that this species may, in fact, be the original inhabitants of Earth. Whether they arrived from a distant stellar system in the ancient past or evolved here through a now lost evolutionary lineage remains unknown. What is clear, however, is that their presence predates recorded human history. They have existed alongside humanity, sometimes openly, sometimes from the shadows, for tens of thousands of years. There is significant variation in their physical appearance, suggesting adaptation and evolution across eons. Some reports describe them as entirely hairless, others with flowing white or blonde hair. Skin tones have ranged from pale white to a light yellow hue. Their eyes are consistently reported to be larger than those of humans, approximately 1.5 to 2 times the size, and come in a spectrum of colors including blue, pink, red, and an intense dark blue. In some cases, individuals with a slightly yellow-toned complexion and almond-shaped eyes appear almost Asian in morphology. Interestingly, these variations tend to correlate with geography. In Northern Europe and the Scandinavian region, there are reports of individuals resembling East Asians, while in Central Europe and the United States, beings with paler complexions are more frequently encountered. This distribution raises the possibility of regional adaptations or even an intentional scattering of subgroups across different parts of the globe in prehistory. One of the most peculiar anatomical features often cited in eyewitness accounts and ancient depictions is a pronounced cranial structure, marked by an expanded forehead and an elongated rear skull. This shape is often accentuated by what seems to be a soft, fatty, and energy-rich mass on top of the head, terminating in a slight bulge. Theories suggest that this anatomical trait serves an energy efficiency purpose, possibly related to the high energy demands of their brains. Historically, depictions of deities with large, brilliant blue eyes and elongated skulls are prevalent across numerous ancient cultures. In an attempt to emulate these beings, some early human societies practiced cranial deformation, binding the heads of infants to artificially elongate the skull into the desired shape. Such practices hint at a deep reverence, possibly fear, and perhaps even genetic memory of contact with these godlike entities. There is increasing evidence that, like humans, this species diversified over time into distinct subgroups with varying physical traits and social functions. The ancient world was vast and largely unexplored by early humans. Prior to the development of oceanic travel and complex navigation, it is likely that these beings lived on remote islands, isolated continents, or subterranean environments that were inaccessible to humanity. As humans began to expand technologically, developing ships and eventually aircraft, these beings appear to have retreated, either into hidden underworlds, deep oceans, or possibly into space itself. Despite this retreat, their presence has never fully disappeared. Throughout history, they have emerged at critical junctures, often in quiet coexistence with human societies. Accounts of sudden appearances of tall, luminous beings during moments of upheaval, war, or revelation are too consistent across cultures and epochs to ignore. Their vocalizations, according to various testimonies, are quite unique. Some witnesses report that their voices are high-pitched, resonating in frequencies similar to birdsong, suggesting a form of sonic communication alien to human vocal patterns. Others describe their spoken language as eerily similar to Nordic tongues, rich in rhythm and tonality. Despite these differences, one common element pervades all credible accounts. Communication with this species appears to be fundamentally telepathic. Their mental broadcast transcends spoken language, conveying ideas, emotions, and even images directly into the human mind. Their eyes, brilliant and otherworldly, appear to be sensitive to intense light. Like the clone species believed to be derived from them, these beings may employ specialized biological lenses over their eyes to reduce glare and protect against harsh environmental conditions. This adaptation, whether natural or engineered, suggests a highly developed understanding of biology and biophysics. Across the centuries, alliances between human power structures and these beings have occasionally surfaced in historical records, albeit in veiled terms. The question remains, why would a species so advanced choose to involve itself with humanity? One possibility, entertained by researchers within the Ezekiel Project, is that humans themselves are a direct product of genetic engineering, either as descendants, hybrids, or designed beings with a specific role to play. Another, more utilitarian theory posits that humans are of value as biological resources. The great whites, despite their intelligence and grace, may possess fragile physiologies, poorly suited to Earth's harsher environments. In this context, human beings may have been bred or cultivated to provide medical or biological support. Our physical resilience and genetic plasticity may offer qualities that this other species lacks. The Ezekiel Project has uncovered substantial findings in this area, including leaked documents, video testimonies, and archived articles, some of which have been made available in secure repositories. These materials point toward an ongoing interest in human genetic material, not only by the great whites, but potentially by multiple non-human factions. Despite their majestic aura and long-standing presence, these beings are not immortal. They bleed, they suffer injury, and they die. It is only through the lens of ancient awe and religious interpretation that we have come to see them as gods. In reality, they are beings, perhaps our distant relatives, who have shared this world with us, shaped our myths, and possibly even guided our evolution. The truth, as it stands, is a delicate dance between revelation and mystery. We must be willing to confront the possibility that much of our identity, our biology, and even our civilization may be interwoven with a presence far older than we can imagine. The Great Whites, the Pleiadians, or whatever their true name may be, remain both a mirror and a mystery, reflections of what we are and what we may yet become. Finally, we must turn our attention to the species that, by all measures available to us, appears to be the most advanced, and at the same time the most fundamentally unlike humanity. This species, referred to internally by the Ezekiel Project as the Camos, is believed to possess capabilities that transcend the physical limitations of our dimension. If our analyses and decades of research are correct, these entities have mastered the ability to travel interdimensionally, crossing the thresholds between parallel realities and the space-time framework as we understand it. Unlike other known or speculated non-human intelligences, NHI, the Camos are not bound by physical permanence. They have the ability to materialize within our three-dimensional space and just as easily dematerialize back into a realm we do not yet comprehend. Their presence, when observable, is fleeting, manifesting often in the form of luminous objects or aerial phenomena. The so-called orbs frequently reported in sightings around the world may, in fact, be projections or scouts, small, maneuverable surveillance units capable of transforming into physical spheres when needed. These constructs seem to be designed to collect environmental data and monitor life forms, possibly including humans, without detection. One particularly striking aspect of the Camos is their apparent ability to employ sophisticated cloaking technologies. These do not resemble anything in our current technological arsenal. Rather, their concealment appears seamless, whether optical, dimensional, or something far beyond. They have been most commonly observed in regions with elevated ambient temperatures, including the southern United States and large parts of South America. These areas have become hotspots not merely for UFO sightings, but for high-strangeness phenomena that defy rational explanation. It is in these remote and often arid landscapes that the Camos seem most active. Their physical form, though rarely seen clearly, is known to differ drastically from the humanoid template. What little information exists suggests that their skeletal structure and joint articulation are fundamentally non-humanoid. Their gait is described as foreign, possibly insectoid, serpentine, or mechanically fluid in a way that eludes direct comparison. This irregular mode of movement has been noted in several encounters, always under the cover of darkness. Indeed, the Camos appear to be strictly nocturnal, which implies the presence of highly advanced night vision or possibly even a biological adaptation to the absence of light. In terms of physical resilience, they appear to be nearly impervious to conventional weapons. Projectiles, including bullets and energy-based weapons used in test simulations or unverified encounters, seem to have little to no effect. Whether this is due to a shielding technology, phase-shifted bodily composition, or an inherent resistance is unknown. The lack of clear data on this point remains one of the greatest frustrations within the Ezekiel Project's ongoing efforts. Because of their elusive nature and the profound technological disparity between us and them, this species remains poorly understood. Nonetheless, their presence is strongly suspected to be behind the persistent myths of reptilians and insectoids that have circulated in both underground literature and ancient mythology. The legends of scaled, cold-blooded, or mantis-like beings may be misunderstood interpretations of sightings involving the Camos. It is possible that throughout history, various cultures tried to give form to what they could not comprehend, encoding the image of these visitors into symbols and stories. Despite the scarcity of hard data, the Ezekiel Project has, through the use of remote viewing protocols and highly trained individuals, uncovered fragmented impressions and glimpses into their presence. These findings are cautious, sometimes metaphorical, but consistent enough to suggest that these beings are not a figment of imagination. They are real, active, and interested in our world, though their motives remain obscured. The Ezekiel Project has been active for over 20 years, conducting research in the face of both growing interest and firm resistance, particularly from religious communities, most notably within certain branches of Christianity. The concept of beings that are technologically superior and capable of godlike feats continues to challenge traditional doctrines. Yet our mission has always remained the same: to pursue the truth without bias, dogma, or preconceived judgment. We are not seeking to dismantle belief systems, but to uncover what lies beneath the surface of our shared reality. Our work is supported by a growing community of truth seekers, skeptics, and open-minded scholars. We publish what we can: videos, documents, reports, and personal accounts, and in doing so, we provide the public with a chance to see behind the veil. These disclosures are not without consequence, but we believe that informed awareness is essential to human progress. If you wish to support our efforts, you need only follow our work and join our network. Every individual who walks this path with us strengthens our capacity to uncover and share these truths. Together, we continue to explore the nature of these beings who may be older than our species, wiser than our greatest minds, and yet still bound to the same cosmic reality in which we all exist. In time, we may come to understand them not as monsters or myths, but as fellow travelers of existence, complex, unknowable, and perhaps essential to understanding ourselves. I hope you enjoy the new insights. See you next time, your AI correspondent Laura, and don't forget, God is unreal.